We've all been there, looking at a challenging task, knowing you need to start, but your brain does everything it can to avoid it. You find yourself scrolling through your phone, watching random videos, or maybe even cleaning your desk. Anything but the work that needs to be done. It's frustrating, right? So how do you force your brain to get past that resistance and actually do the hard things? In this video, we're going to break down how you can rewire your brain to tackle tough tasks without mental struggle or procrastination. First, let's understand why this happens in the first place. It's not just you, everyone experiences it. Your brain is hardwired to conserve energy. It wants to avoid discomfort and prioritize easy, low-effort tasks. So, when faced with something hard, your brain goes into fight or flight mode. It feels stressed and tries to protect you by urging you to avoid the task. The brain essentially says, "This is hard, let's do something else." But avoiding hard tasks doesn't make them disappear. It only increases stress and anxiety, which makes the next hard task even harder. So, how do we break this cycle of avoidance? The first step is rewiring your brain. Just like you'd train a muscle at the gym, you need to train your brain to handle discomfort and take action. But you can't jump into the toughest tasks right away. You need to start small. Trying to do everything at once can feel overwhelming. Instead, break things down into smaller, manageable steps. The more you practice, the stronger your brain becomes at dealing with tough tasks. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes something you can handle with ease. Breaking things down is one of the most effective ways to get started. When a task feels too big, it's easy to freeze and not know where to begin. For example, writing a report can seem like a huge mountain to climb. 10 pages, the pressure of getting it right, the looming deadline, it's all too much. But if you break it down and think, okay, I'll just start by writing one sentence, suddenly it doesn't feel as intimidating. The key here is to focus on that first step, not the entire task. Once you take that first small step, the momentum begins to build. The task that once seemed overwhelming now feels more manageable. Focusing on progress, not perfection, is crucial. Each step you take brings you closer to completion, and that sense of progress keeps you motivated. Now, breaking things down helps you get started, but what if the task still feels overwhelming, even in smaller chunks? The next strategy is to shift your mindset. Instead of focusing on how hard the task is, focus on the reward. When we think about a difficult task, we often focus on how long it will take, how hard it will be, and all the things we'd rather be doing instead. But if you start to visualize the positive outcome, the sense of relief when it's done, the satisfaction of completing it, you'll feel more motivated. When you focus on the reward, your brain begins to associate the task with something positive, which reduces resistance and makes it easier to get started. But sometimes, even breaking things down and shifting your focus isn't enough. That's where the 5-minute rule comes into play. This rule is simple. When a task feels overwhelming, tell yourself you'll work on it for just 5 minutes. That's it, only 5 minutes. You're not committing to hours of work, just 5 minutes. The power of this technique is that once you start, it's much easier to keep going. The hardest part is getting started. After 5 minutes, you might find you've worked for 20 minutes, or even an hour. Once you break through that initial resistance, your brain gets into a flow state, and the task doesn't feel as daunting. Once you've broken down the task, reframed your perspective, and used the 5-minute rule to get going, there's one more powerful tool you can use to stay motivated: visualization. Visualization is a technique used by athletes, performers, and successful people across the world because it works. Before you start a tough task, take a few minutes to close your eyes and imagine yourself completing it. Picture each step, starting, overcoming obstacles, and finally finishing. Visualization reduces anxiety, boosts confidence, and primes your brain for success. When you visualize yourself succeeding, you trick your brain into thinking it's already done, making it easier to get started. The more vividly you visualize success, the more likely it is to happen in real life. But even with all these strategies, sometimes the biggest difference between success and failure comes down to accountability. When you're working alone, it's easy to procrastinate or give up. But when you have someone else to answer to, the pressure of letting them down can be a huge motivator. Whether you tell a friend about your goal, set up regular check-ins, or share your progress online, accountability helps you stay on track. You're not just letting yourself down, you're letting others down too. This external pressure can be just the push you need to follow through, especially when you're feeling resistant. These strategies all work because of something called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and form new connections. Every time you push through resistance and complete a difficult task, you're rewiring your brain to make it easier next time. Just like training a muscle, the more you practice, the stronger your brain becomes at dealing with tough situations. Over time, the things that once seemed impossible will feel much more manageable, and your resistance to them will decrease. But here's the truth. You won't always feel motivated to do the hard things. There will be days when you don't feel like tackling that difficult task. That's completely normal. The goal isn't to wait for motivation to strike. It's about building habits that make it easier to take action, even when you don't feel like it. The more you practice these strategies, the less you'll need to rely on motivation, and the more you'll rely on the habit of simply doing the work. So the next time you're faced with a tough task, remember these steps. Break it down, focus on the reward, use the 5-minute rule, visualize success, and set up accountability. Start small, build the habit, and before long, you'll find that doing hard things isn't as hard as it once seemed. Your brain is capable of far more than you think. You just need to train it. Thanks for watching. If these strategies were helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a little push. And, as always, keep growing. See you in the next one.